For some of you, this may be your first time preparing the herbs, and after you've received your step-by-step detailed instructions, it may seem a little overwhelming. So we're creating this video to take you through a step-by-step process of how to prepare the herbs to help eliminate some of the stress. Some of the items that you're going to need in order to prepare your herbs will be a cooking pan in order to put your herbs in because you're going to be boiling them. You're also going to need a measuring cup as well as either a wooden spoon, chopstick, anything that has a straight stick on it that you can use as a measuring stick inside your cooking pot. You're also going to need a small strainer to strain your herbs off at the very end, as well as a storage container to keep your herbs in after they're all cooked. Some of the few things that you might come across when you receive your herbs, you're going to get one big bag of herbs. Some of them may have a little solo cup, that's a little plastic cup. It might have some white powder or brown powder in it. You're going to want to take those out of your herb bag and set them on the side before you start cooking. Some of the other items you might find inside of there would be a paper pouch that's sealed that might have some small herbs in it. It might be some small seeds or crystals or powder in it. Don't open the bag up. Just set those in the cooking pot right along with your herbs to cook. So let's start with our first step. Follow along with me on your instruction sheet. You're going to have one large bag with several bags in there. Take one of your small bags out. It says place one small bag of herbs in a large cooking pot that has a lid. And if you have a small little plastic solo cup, as I showed you earlier, take that out and set that on the side, and we'll be going over that later, what we're going to do with that. Take your herbs, put them, empty them out inside. Again, if there's a mesh bag in it that has some sealed herbs inside, just lay it right in the pot along with the rest of the herbs. Then we're going to our next step is, step number 2, add 10 ounces of water to your cooking pot with the herbs in there. So we're going to take 10 ounces of water, we're going to put them inside the pot with the herbs. Step number 3, we're going to measure the water level inside the cooking pan. And how you can do that, like I said, you can use a wooden spoon or chopstick, anything that you've got laying around that has a straight stick on it. You're going to set it right inside the herb pan, and now you're going to want to get a pen, magic marker, or pencil, and you're going to mark it right on the stick where the water comes up to inside the pan. So once you place your mark there on your stick, you're going to lay your stick on the side. And let's go over here to step number 4. Add 40 ounces more of water to your cooking pot. So let's get 40 more ounces and we're going to add it to our cooking pot. And we're now adding the last 40 ounces to our cooking pot. Now if you take a look at your notes, it also says on there that the amount of water that we're using in our pan, this extra 40 ounces, may at times need to be adjusted according to the amount of herbs that you have in your bag. Again, if you only have like 3 or 4 little herbs in your bag, you're going to use less water. If you have a lot more herbs, say your herb bag is really packed full of herbs, then you're going to need to add a little bit more water. There's no perfect science to this because all herbs cook differently. Everyone's prescription is different, so you just kind of have to generalize it, but your herbs should be completely covered with water and there should be excess amount above the top of your herbs. Another thing too is you may cook 2 bags in one pot, but you're going to have to double your water amounts. It's going to take more water, so you're going to need a much bigger pot as well. So after you've added though your 40 ounces of water, what we're going to do then is we're going to put our pot on the stove, we're going to put a lid on it, and we're going to turn the heat up on high. So we've added our 40 ounces of water to the cooking pot. I've placed my lid on my pan. I'm going to next turn my temperature up on high to bring it to a rapid boil. Again, in this part of the process, our goal is to bring it to a rapid boil. Once it gets to that rapid boil, you're going to take your lid and you're going to tilt it off slightly and then bring it down to about a medium-high temperature. It needs to stay at a rapid boil, kind of like medium, not as rapid as when we first start it boiling, but it also does not need to be at a light boil. It's a medium rapid boil that it needs to stay at. But what I would do next is set your timer on your stove, set it for about 30 minutes. If you're going to be out and about around the house away from the stove, get your cell phone and set the timer on your cell phone and carry it around with you to remind you, because One of the biggest mistakes that most patients make is they walk away from the stove and they forget about it and their herbs burn in their cooking pot. So set the timer for 30 minutes after you tilt the lid off and set it on a medium rolling boil. Set your timer at 30 minutes, come back and check on it. Okay, we have now reached a very rapid boil with our lid on. So what I'm going to do is tilt the lid off slightly. We're going to turn our temperature down to a medium high. And again, we're going to make sure that this doesn't boil over after I've turned it down. And once it settles down to the medium boil, then you're going to set your timer for 30 minutes and you'll come back and check on it. So the total length of your cooking process is going to take you 1.5 hours to 2 hours to get it boiled back down to the original 10 ounces that you measured it at with your measuring stick. So I have taken the lid off after I've been checking it frequently throughout the 1.5 hours to 2 hours. I keep checking on my herbs, especially the first time I've cooked it through, just to learn how the pan, and plus I'm cooking with electric here. If you're cooking with gas using a different type of pan, it'll all vary on the cooking time and how quickly the water evaporates. If during the cooking process you found that a lot of your water has evaporated, you're going to need to add a little bit more water to it. And also adjust your heat. Your temperature could be too high and that might be evaporating the water a little too quickly. So I've put my measuring stick in. I'm back down to the 10 ounces that I originally measured it at. So I'm going to pour my herb broth through a strainer and I'm going to gather it and collect it into my jar, and then we'll be all finished and we'll go over the serving instructions. So I'm all done cooking my broth. I've poured it out into my storage container, a mason jar. I cooked 1 bag of herbs and I ended up with 8 ounces instead of the 10 ounces that we say cook it approximately down to 10 ounces. All herbs cook differently, so therefore what we get out of it is going to be different. Sometimes we'll get 10 ounces, sometimes we'll get 12 ounces, sometimes we'll get 8 ounces out of it. Whatever amount of fluid you get out of it, divide it in half, drink half in the morning and half in the evening. And again, if you're cooking 2 bags of herbs, you're going to have 4 portions in there instead of 2 portions. And what I would recommend is on the lid, put a little label on it that tells you how many portions are in the jar if you are indeed drinking more than 1 day's worth of broth. But if you have, at the end of your cooking, if you did have one of these plastic solo cups, empty the powder into your broth. Stir it up really well. If it's brown powder, sometimes it takes a little time to dissolve and break down. If it's the white powder, it won't require as much stirring, but pour the powder in there at the end, stir it up. Some cooking instructions may include adding egg yolk at the end after you've cooked your broth. What you would do on that then is let your broth cool down until it's reached approximately a room temperature, and then add your 2 egg yolks in and stir it up really well. Never add it in when it's really hot, because then you'll end up with scrambled eggs in your broth and that won't taste so great. So I'm going to put my lid on my jar and I'm going to store it in the refrigerator until it's time to drink it. And when it's time to drink it, then I'm going to pour it off and warm it up in the microwave, and I'll be all set for the day.